Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Sarthak Show. On this channel, we discuss about tech, career, product, and life. And today we have a very special guest, Aishwarya, with us. She has worked at companies like Goldman and 𝐑𝐸𝐸. And today we will understand her story, her life journey, about things, how did she was able to manage those amazing career choices, and what are the learnings that she had for you. So thank you so much, Aishwarya, for joining in for this podcast. And we are
Thanks a lot.
happy to have you here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks a lot, Sarthak, for inviting me to your channel.
Always a pleasure for you. So my very first question is, can you share a little bit more about yourself for the audience out there?
Yeah, sure. So I actually graduated this year from NMIT Jaipur. I had a degree in communication and computer engineering. I did an internship, a summer internship with Goldman Sachs in the summers of 2021, which is last year. Then I got an on-campus opportunity with 𝐑𝐸𝐸 last year itself. I cracked it in August 2021. And then I started doing an internship with 𝐑𝐸𝐸 from January. And now in July, I finally joined 𝐑𝐸𝐸 as a full-time. So currently, yes, I'm working in 𝐸𝐸 itself. That's more or less about me. But at the same time, I love creating content. I have been creating content on LinkedIn for like 2-3 years now. And I recently started creating content on YouTube as well, which is more or less related to my niche only, which is software engineering, how to crack the technical interviews and everything. So if anyone is interested, they can definitely follow my content. So yeah, that's about me.
Yeah, I think an awesome part, and anybody who is looking forward to her awesome content, I will put the link in the description box below. You can check that out and reach out to her on LinkedIn or check out her content.
Yeah.
And yeah, moving forward, as you mentioned, you cracked Goldman Sachs, but how did you apply for the position? Was that an on-campus opportunity, or did you apply by referral or any other way?
So, Sarthak, basically, I during my internship season, COVID was there. So my college did not, or basically you can say could not invite any companies for internships. And they did invite it, but it was very late. Like it was in my sixth semester. But generally we start looking for internships in fifth semester itself. So I decided I have to do something. If not from college, I have to look for opportunities outside. And then also I was very active on LinkedIn. So I used to follow people, or you can say I used to follow some pages specifically, which used to post about opportunities. And for me, I think LinkedIn specifically and solely has been very helpful to come to know about these opportunities. I didn't follow any other website, just LinkedIn itself. So one day I just suddenly came across this opportunity on LinkedIn that, Goldman Sachs is actually hiring, and you can actually go directly to their portal and apply. So I exactly did that. I went to their portal, I applied there, and I did not take any reference because it was basically open for everyone. And as far as I know, anyone and everyone actually got the online assessment link. So it didn't really require your reference. They didn't do any resume shortlisting whatsoever. So yeah, I was lucky enough to get the online assessment link as well. And the story is of, I guess, August 2020, 2020, when the COVID was there. And then the process was long enough. It took 4 months for the whole process. And I remember there were a lot of people who applied for this position off campus. And since there was no resume shortlisting round, so for the first online assessment round, around 1.5 lakh students sat for the opportunity. One thing, the people who actually know me earlier, they know that I was not able to clear Goldman Sachs in the first go. And I did clear, so they have their 2 online assessments. I did clear those assessments. I did give the interview. I went till the last round, but then I was rejected. And I actually applied once again. So this opportunity came the next year, which was February 2021.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, let's apply once again. What worst will happen? I'll get rejected once more. So, but at least I'll learn something. And then I applied the same process. But yeah, I got selected in the second time. So yeah, this was more or less about how I got to know about this opportunity and how I actually applied for it.
Yeah, I think seriously, it's a wonderful story in itself, because a lot of learnings can be derived from this part itself, that you can directly apply to the career page. It's not always that you need a referral, and you should not keep yourself locked that I need a referral first, then only I can apply for the position.
Right.
And secondly, the very big learning is that even if you get rejected, you can apply again, look for the opportunities coming in.
Right.
So even every rejection comes up with learnings and everything. And you, since you were able to crack those assessment rounds and the interviews till the very last stage of it, you had a good enough idea. And then you
Yeah,
again wait for,
exactly.
if you put your heart and soul to the thing, that it makes sense that in a time, if the opportunity comes again, you will be able to get this. So it's a learning in itself for the audiences.
Right, sir.
Uh, and as you mentioned, there were two assessment rounds, but we want to go further deep down. How was the interview process in itself? What was the structure of the online assessment round? And further on the interview rounds specifically, how were they scheduled, or
Yeah.
what kind of questions or difficulty level are expected, and how did you get the acceptance and the part of it?
So basically, if I talk about the online assessments, they are not easy at all. They were not easy, at least during that time. So the first online assessment off campus, what they generally do is they take two online assessments, whereas for on campus, they take the single assessment only, which was the second assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So the first assessment, which they took, that didn't really have any coding questions. It was more or less aptitude based, purely aptitude based. And to be honest, that was very difficult aptitude, like one of the
Okay.
most difficult aptitudes I've ever attempted. And those questions were actually CAT structure, like the CAT exam. So it was something similar to that. The difficulty level was similar to that. And for some questions, I would say it was a little difficult, more difficult than CAT. The reason being, the questions were really big and the time was less to solve those. Maybe in CAT, you won't see those big questions because again, CAT is very time restricted. You'll have to do a lot of questions within less time. So it was difficult, but I think the trick you should follow is you should look for the easier questions, which first attempt those, because here you don't have to top the exam. No one is asking you to get full marks. All you need to do is, or rather all you should be doing is perform better than most of them. That's what should be your goal. So that means you should be doing as many questions as possible, that too correctly, because there was negative marking as well.
Okay.
And there was a good negative marking. It wasn't like, I think out of 5, -2.
Okay.
If you get +5, otherwise it was -2. So yeah. So whatever questions you are doing, whatever questions you're comfortable and confident with, attempt those first. Do it as soon as possible, and then look towards others which you find a little difficult. Right. So that was the strategy I used. And I was able to clear, not because I solved all the questions, but I solved most of the questions and most of other people. So
Okay.
that was the reason I could get in. Then the second round was more or less again coding round. So there were 4 sections as far as I remember. I don't remember all the sections exactly. Maybe I remember, I'll have to think. So the first section was, I think it was on CS fundamentals. So like you'll get questions from operating systems, DBMS, something like that, maybe normal data structure questions, or some theoretical, that was MCQs. So first was that. Second section was mathematics. And that was again a very difficult question. It was something aptitude related mathematics. So it was very difficult. Once again, really very difficult. So I didn't attempt any question from that because I preferred attempting the ones which I know well, and why to get negative marks if I don't know about something. And then the third section had an advanced question. So the third question had an advanced question. It was to be done within 1 hour, and it consisted of 100 marks, like it carried 100 marks. So it was a very typical graph question, you can say, an advanced graph question. But luckily for me, what I found lucky was that the question which they gave didn't have a very strict boundary, like the time complex. I wrote a solution with the slightly bad time complexity, but since the limits of the input was not that big, I could pass it. So, but still you should know how to write that solution also. I mean, it wasn't easy to write a solution with a bad complexity as well. So yeah, and luckily that got through all the test cases, and I got straight 100 points in that. Then I missed one more section. So this was the advanced question section, right? There was one more section with 2 smaller coding questions. Okay. Right. So that was to be done. Both the questions were to be done within 30 minutes. Okay. And they weren't that easy questions. Once again, I would say, but you had to manage your time and you had to do both the questions within 30 minutes, like 15 each. So I wasn't able to do the questions completely, half. But again, I had an edge because I was able to do the advanced question, and most of the students won't be able to do the advanced question. And then finally, there was a section. It was like basically a subjective answering section where you were given two situational questions, and you had to answer how would you react in those situations. But this last section, sometimes in some online assessments they keep it, and some online assessments they don't keep it. So they stress more on the rest of the sections. This is how the online assessments went, and then I got again shortlisted. The major reason, once again, I would say, was that advanced question, because if you are able to solve it, given you are also solving some other questions, not just this, some MCQs and all, most likely you'll be called for an interview. So I was called for an interview. Now the format Goldman Sachs actually carries is they have all the three interviews. They have three interviews, two technical and one is HR, like with some manager or something. And the time limit for every interview is like, for technical interviews is half an hour, mostly half an hour, 40 minutes. And for the HR, or rather the managerial round, it is 10-15 minutes at most. So they have all these three rounds in a single day. They'll have a Zoom meeting, and then they'll just assign you to a particular room. So everyone is in a single room. And then when your time comes, you will be dragged to another room, the interviewer's room. So basically, you won't know when will you be dragged. You'll have to sit in front of your computer, your laptop, and you just can never expect when will you be dragged. Suddenly, you'll be dragged to the room, to the interview room. So yeah, that is one of the things. I basically waited there. The first round, if I talk about the first round, it was more or less like not that difficult. I just simply introduced myself, I talked about my projects, and then he asked me, oh, you did this project, you use this technology. So what do you know about this technology? Why should I use, for say, React.js? So why is React.js always, it's better preferred over other front-end technologies? You can just convince me, why did you use React.js and all? So this was some theoretical question. He asked me a few more questions on my project, and then he gave me a coding question, which was not a very difficult question. It was a DP question, but I didn't use DP directly. I just went through the, you can say, logic first, like how will that question be done? I just talked through the whole logic. What was I thinking? How would I carry it and all? And he basically was impressed, because I was not someone who mugged up some solution and was throwing it in front of him. It was rather, I was thinking it through, because it was an unknown question to me. So he could look through how I would solve an unknown question, and this is how would I solve it. So he was really impressed with me from that. And then then I think, yeah, that was the only question he asked, because anyway, the limit was 30 minutes for an interview. And then I asked him a few questions about Goldman's culture and everything, what technology do they use most and all. So yeah, that's how it went. The next interview was with a lady. And so Goldman also asks you puzzles. You should be preparing puzzles as well. I did the preparation from Geeks for Geeks. And so she again went through my resume, and there I mentioned about, one of my non-technical experience. It was with an organization, which is an international organization known as ISEC. And she was really curious about it because she hadn't heard of it. So she wanted to know, what does this organization do, and what is your role in it? What have you done? This and that. So we had some discussion around it. And then she maybe realized that she can ask me some situational questions, some HR questions. So she asked some HR questions to me. After that, she asked me a puzzle. I answered that puzzle. And then she asked a very simple implementation question, coding question. So yeah, that was it. And finally, after waiting for 2-3 hours, 4-5 hours, I was actually a little scared after that, because if you're not called for the managerial round, most likely you're not selected. So I was hoping, please call me for the managerial round. And it was already 7:30, or maybe not exactly that, around 6:30. I mean, it was getting dark. It was the time of ending the interviews. So I hadn't been called till then. The actual reason was they were late in conducting all the interviews. But I thought, you never know if I again get rejected coming too close to here. But suddenly I got called for the interview, and for some reason the light went off in my house. The power cut was there, and I couldn't use my laptop because no charge. My phone also had no charge. Like, it was not exactly no charge, it was very low on battery, but I knew that I cannot miss this. And it was hardly for 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. He just asked again about myself. He then actually asked me about some puzzle mathematical questions. It was like, he didn't ask me any technical questions. I think one very small theoretical question on hash maps, but then it was more like aptitude mathematical question. Like, how do I actually think about something? This is what he wanted to know. It was a very small interview, and yeah, that's it. After a week and a half, I guess, I got the results that I've been selected. So yeah, this was the whole experience.
Oh, I think it's an amazing story. A
Yeah.
lot of different hoops, ups and downs, and
Right.
as you mentioned that the starting from the right from the aptitude round, it was
Yeah.
very serious to the lit level where +5 -2 is a marking scheme,
Right.
and the
Right.
difficulties at the CAT level. And going to the next round of it, you get a lot of different questions, and that too at a very high difficulty. And I think the reason for that high difficulty might be because they don't want to invest much time on the interview part of it, so they have assessed your
Yeah.
skills.
Right.
The
Right. Right.
interviews are just to verify it, right?
Right. Makes sense. Yeah.
But then again, it's a very difficult interview process that you have to wait in the room, and you might
Yeah.
drag the
The virtual interviews are a pain in ass, I personally feel, because
yeah.
you have to sit. You don't know when will they be calling you. This is, I don't know. This is how they do it. But it would have been much easier if it would have been like a physical interview, I personally feel. So
Yeah, I think exactly. At least I remember one of my friend having those lunch directly sitting at the computer because they were he was not aware when
yeah,
he might get called.
right, right,
So
right.
so those difficult times. But yeah, again, out of these all the challenges that you face, even with the lighting situation and everything, you are able
Yeah,
to crack it. And I think kudos for you for that all the efforts and breaking on these challenges. I
yeah,
think again it's an inspiration for the audience that you might get faced with a lot of different challenges that are even
yeah,
not in control for like you are not even aware
yeah,
why this, as you mentioned, that interview was getting delayed, but you were not aware at that moment. It was just a sense of nervousness why I'm not
yeah.
getting called for the managerial round, right?
Right, right, right.
So you might have to challenge like face all of the different things and challenges. So be prepared for that. That's one of the
Yeah,
advice
right,
that I've
right, right.
yeah, but again, I think that is a happy part of it. You got the call, you got shortlisted and everything. It's the day of the joining as an intern. So, how was the internship experience in general at Goldman Sachs?
So I think it wasn't a very good experience, and the one of the reasons being it was a virtual internship. I just wish I could have attended a physical internship, but again, it wasn't in my control. And because of COVID, they decreased the timeline from 8 weeks to 6 weeks, so it became very hectic. So definitely it was that. Other than that, if these things, if we exclude these things, we just minus these things, I would say everything was really amazing. It was my first ever corporate experience, and I got to learn a lot. I got to network a lot. We had a team of like 9, 10 people. Everyone was very friendly, very welcoming. We were 3 interns in that particular team. So yeah, I mean, became pretty much good friends with each other. Goldman Sachs, what it actually does is for every intern, they assign a buddy. So that
Okay.
buddy is someone whom you will be going to ask your doubts to. Now, you might have heard of mentors, but there
Mm-hmm.
are mentors. But on top of that, there are buddies as well. So, like, mentor is someone who is an SME in this
Okay.
field, who is a subject matter expert. So, I had 2 mentors who knew very well about the project I was working with. But my buddy was someone, he was not very much aware of the project. He was also helping me with that and learning at the same time. So, if I
Okay.
had any doubt, I would just reach out to him. He was also solely responsible for my project. I was, of course, the owner of the project, but at the same time, he was also responsible in, a lot of other things. The project should be completed. She should get what she wants to get. She should know, and she should get her doubts clear and everything. So I used to have regular meetings with them every day. We used to discuss everything, and then if and when required, we would also both go and have meetings with the mentors. So
Okay.
yeah, it was really amazing. Buddy means that he's a friend of yours. So that's an amazing culture at Goldman. You won't find that culture everywhere.
Right.
So yeah, I made good friends with them. And then on Fridays and in general, also if there was someone's birthday and something, so we used to have these meetings wherein we'll just play some games. And then there are a few people, including me, who love music. So we just sing and we just play some music, some instruments. So yeah, it was really amazing. It was an amazing mixture of both work and fun. I learned a lot about, the corporate communication, how to reach out to people if you want help, because your communication should be really good when you are in a virtual setting. And the reason being, you don't see people, you cannot make direct friends with them unless you reach out to them from proactively.